Do you ever struggle to get to the pots and pans in the back of your cabinets? Does it look something like this? Well, no fear. I'm Alan Regala, owner of ShelfGenie of Seattle, and today we're going to go through 5 different ways to help organize effectively your pots and pans in the kitchen. At ShelfGenie, we design, build, and install custom storage solutions to provide our clients with easier access, better organization, and more storage space in the home. The first thing I want to talk about are the principles of effective and accessible storage. So let's take a look at this kitchen cabinet here. Now you see these pots and pans, this probably makes you feel queasy inside. There are a couple of reasons why. The first thing is you can recognize the dead space in this cabinet. Now that would be the space that's not being used. The first principle is to try to minimize that dead space so that we can use as much of the space as possible. The second principle is to try to minimize stacking or minimize piling. Now, some things are meant to stack, such as bowls or plates, but when you take a look at this picture here and you see this pile of different items that aren't meant to stack and they're just piled on top of each other to use that space, it just makes it really hard to get to any of the items that are on the bottom. So you have to unstack everything to get to that thing that you want, which of course is always on the bottom. The third principle is when we're trying to get to the back of the space, we've got things in front of each other, we want to be able to pull these out so that you can get to the back of the space without having to take everything in the front out first. Now, when we combine these things, the 3 things of minimizing dead space, minimizing stacking, and having everything pull out to get to the back, we end up designing spaces that have pull-out shelving, and we have shorter spaces for the shorter items and taller spaces for the taller items, trying to consolidate items by height when we can so that we cannot have excessive dead space in that cabinet. Now, when it comes to being organized, you can organize once and it'll look great for about a day or maybe a week. But as soon as you have other people using the space or you yourself are using the space, and if you don't have easy access to get to the things in the back, what ends up happening is things just get shoved towards the back of the cabinet, right? So being able to pull things out and have access to the back very easily will allow you to maintain that organization, which is really the key to being organized all year round. So the first solution I want to talk about is very simple. It is simply 2 glide-out shelves that pull out, and you've got really easy access to the pots and pans that are on top of those shelves. Just like this picture shows here, this will pull out. You can get access to the back, no problem. You don't have to take things in the front out. Super simple. The second solution is also very simple as far as having 2 glide-outs, 2 levels with pots and pans, but this one incorporates some dividers on one of the levels for lids. Now this can be a great option if you have to stack pots inside of each other and then you've got, you need to have a space for those lids and you want to keep them organized and vertical so they're not stacked on top of each other. The third solution we're going to talk about here is what we call a pan drawer. And so this is one of our custom solutions here that you can see. We have dividers also, but the walls are much taller on this, and this allows us to keep the pans vertical. Now, if you have this many pans, this might be a great solution. A good way to easily access them without having to unstack a whole lot of pans that would otherwise perhaps be stacked on top of each other. You would have to find another place for lids and obviously, a separate unit for the pots, but this can work really well if you do have a lot of pans. The fourth solution here is if you have a ton of pans or pots and you don't have a lot of cabinet space. And this is something that's super simple and you can get off the shelf, something ShelfGenie doesn't actually provide. It's just a simple pot rack. You go on Amazon and look for a pot rack or go on Google and you'll see something like this where you can hang your pans and your pots on these shelves that are outside of the cabinets. This is great for spaces that, again, limited cabinet space, but you want to make good use of that vertical space, that open space that's up in the kitchen. And if you have a place against a wall or maybe above an island or someplace where you're not going to bang your head into it, this can work really well. Now the fifth and final solution is really my favorite. This is one that I try to implement with my clients when possible. It involves having 3 levels of glide outs. Now we try to separate the levels out by height, so as long as we don't have a super tall stock pot, like a crab pot or something of that nature, which maybe can get stored in another area of the home or the garage, we can usually fit 3 in. And if we have the stock pots together and some of the bigger pots, we have a level for the shorter pots and the pans. We invert the lids and keep them on top of the pots and pans. That way, we don't have to go around searching for lids, and they're nicely organized in there when you need them. And we invert them so that they don't take up excessive height in the cabinet. When we do this, we have an effective use of the space. We can store a ton of pots and pans in there, and everything is super easy to get to. Thanks for checking out ShelfGenie Tips and Tricks. You can learn more or book a design consultation on our website, shelfgenie.com/Seattle.